All right, deep divers, get ready, because we are heading way back in time, back to ancient Rome.
But just between us, this isn't going to be some boring history lecture or anything. You guys have been really into Stoicism lately.
So we are going all in on the life of Marcus Aurelius. This guy was an emperor who used Stoicism not only to, rule, but to deal with some really, really tough times.
And, we're talking plagues, wars, the whole 9 yards. And we've got a Stoicism expert with us today.
To help us figure out how these ancient ideas can still be useful for dealing with life in the 21st century, right?
Yeah. What's so interesting about Marcus Aurelius is that he wasn't just reading about Stoicism in his spare time. This was a guy who was living it.
And not just, hidden away somewhere peaceful. This was the emperor of Rome. Talk about pressure.
Oh, I know, right? Can you imagine having to make these huge decisions, like life or death decisions, for an entire empire?
Well, you've got barbarians at your borders.
A horrible plague is going around. And actually, speaking of plagues, the Antonine Plague back then, that killed millions of people. It's crazy.
I can't even imagine what the news and the panic would have been like back then. So how did Marcus Aurelius not just totally lose it?
Well, that's where Stoicism comes in. It's this idea that you should focus on what you can actually control, right? Like your thoughts, your actions.
Even when everything around you feels like it's falling apart.
Absolutely.
I don't know about you, but the way the news is these days and social media, honestly, that idea sounds kind of perfect right now.
Yeah, and 100%. We are just bombarded with information all the time now, and so much of it is negative, right? It's really easy to feel totally overwhelmed.
And that's where, the Stoics, they had this idea, they called it, get this, negative visualization.
Okay, negative visualization. That sounds kind of intense. Are we talking about doom scrolling here?
No, not really. It's more about preparing yourself mentally for tough situations. Like, say you are worried about maybe losing your job.
Well, the Stoics, they'd tell you to actually picture that happening, but not to dwell on it, to make yourself feel bad, but to sort of mentally prepare yourself so you realize that even if the worst case did happen, you'd still be okay. You could cope.
You'd move on.
So it's like you're taking the fear out of what might happen.
By kind of being ready for it in your head so you're not freaking out so much in the moment.
Exactly. And that actually connects to another big Stoic idea, which is all about controlling how you respond to things.
And Marcus Aurelius. He wrote about this a lot in his own personal writings, meditations. And the thing is, it's not that you should, pretend you don't have emotions, right?
It's more about deciding how you're going to react because of those emotions.
Okay, so let's say, hypothetically, my internet completely dies right now.
Yeah.
In the middle of recording this.
My initial reaction, to put it mildly, would not be very Stoic. So how would Marcus Aurelius, Mr. Stoicism himself...
How do you think he'd deal with a super frustrating situation like that?
Well, I don't think he'd waste time getting worked up over stuff he couldn't control, right? Like the internet going out, no way.
Instead, he'd focus on what he could control, which is how he reacted to it.
Maybe he'd use the time to think, do some work offline, or even just accept it and be calm about it, He has that great quote, I think everyone's heard it. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. That sums it up perfectly, I think.
I love that quote, and it's true. It's just so easy to get caught up in reacting to every little thing.
But that just turns us into, slaves to our own feelings. Yeah. And the Stoics were all about, taking that control back.
Speaking of control, you also mentioned earlier how important language is, which I find so interesting.
For sure. The Stoics were very aware of how the words we use actually affect our thoughts, our emotions.
They thought that if you used, really exaggerated or dramatic language, you could actually make your negative emotions even stronger.
You mean instead of saying, oh, this is a complete disaster when something goes wrong?
A Stoic might be more likely to say, this is a challenging situation.
Exactly. And it might seem, like just words. But the Stoics really felt that by using more neutral language like that, we don't get all worked up unnecessarily, and we can start to look at things in a clearer, more objective way.
Yeah, that actually reminds me of, have you ever heard of that thing, cognitive reframing?
Therapists use it to help people change those negative thought patterns.
The Stoics were already doing that, centuries ago, which is pretty cool.
But it wasn't all about just avoiding negativity though, right? They also talked about embracing being uncomfortable.
Which honestly sounds kind of weird at first, doesn't it?
It does, it really does. But I think the way to understand it is, we grow more when we face challenges, not when we run away from them,
And Marcus Aurelius, He even saw his job as emperor as like a chance to practice being stoic.
Wait, are you serious? Being emperor wasn't easy.
And he still saw it as a chance to grow.
100%. He thought of like obstacles as opportunities to become more virtuous, more resilient.
And he wrote about, dealing with being sick, physical pain, and just accepting it.
He saw it as just a normal part of life. He even used to he would sleep on the floor sometimes.
Just to remind himself that, hey, being comfortable all the time, that's not what makes you happy.
Wow, sleeping on the floor. Okay, that might be a little too stoic for me, haha.
But I get what you're saying. It's about building up that mental toughness, becoming resilient.
Exactly, and that connects with another thing. The Stoics were really into controlling your desires.
Marcus Aurelius.
Yeah.
He was totally about enjoying life, don't get me wrong, but he also warned against letting our desires run wild.
He thought that desires, when you don't keep them in check, they lead you to bad choices.
Even to suffering, which is interesting.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense, especially now.
When everything's about instant gratification, right?
Like, think about social media. This pressure to always have more, be more, it's exhausting.
It really is.
Yeah.
And this is where that Stoic idea, the negative visualization we were talking about, it's actually helpful here too.
Like, let's say you're about to buy something you don't really need just because, I don't know, you saw a really slick ad online or something.
A Stoic, they might actually try to picture all the bad stuff that could come from that purchase, the debt, the clutter.
Just to, like, weigh the short-term fun of buying it against the long-term consequences. Does that make sense?
It does. It's like hitting the pause button before you make a decision.
Really thinking about if this thing, whatever it is, actually matches up with your values, with your goals.
Exactly. It's about making your actions line up with what you believe in.
Yeah. And actually, speaking of what you believe in, Stoicism wasn't just about personal growth.
There's a strong ethical side to it too. Like Marcus Aurelius, he really believed that to be a good emperor, a good person, period, you had to act with justice.
With wisdom, with courage.
So it goes deeper than just like feeling better. It's about being better, which is interesting.
And to be honest, that's one of the things that I find so cool about Stoicism. It's not just some like trendy self-help thing.
It's got this really deep philosophical core and ethical core.
Absolutely. And that's probably a big reason why we're seeing so many people into Stoicism these days. It gives you like a framework for living a good life.
A life with meaning, even when things feel super chaotic and uncertain.
Because let's face it, who couldn't use a little bit of that?
No kidding. But you know what trips me up?
It's the word stoic itself. Like, we use it to describe someone who's all, shut down emotionally, maybe even cold.
But is that really what Stoicism is all about?
That is such a common misunderstanding. We got to be careful with that word, right?
There's a difference between, like, stoic with a lowercase skis, like, that stereotype of someone just bottling up all their feelings.
And then there's Stoicism, uppercase S, which is the real deal philosophy that Marcus Aurelius was into.
So it's not about being, like, some kind of robot.
Not at all. The Stoics, they knew that emotions are just part of being human, right? It's what you do with those emotions that counts. They believed we all have a choice in how we react to things. And that choice, that's what shapes you.
Yeah, that makes sense, right? It's not about, like, not feeling things. It's just more about not letting your feelings run the show.
Which, let's be real, that's something most of us are working on our whole lives, probably.
But I think that's also why Stoicism is so relevant, even now. It's not about being perfect, emotionally.
It's about, like, just showing up and doing your best, even when things are kind of crazy.
Exactly. And, we have to remember Marcus Aurelius wasn't just, like, writing a self-help book here.
This was a guy running an empire. Through pandemics, wars, political drama, I mean, come on.
Talk about a masterclass in handling chaos.
And that's what I find really inspiring about Stoicism. It's about actually doing something. It's about living in the real world.
With all the messy stuff that comes with it, and figuring out how to move through it all.
It's like that quote, I'm not sure if it's actually his or not, but the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. You know that one.
Like those obstacles, they can actually become the way forward, which is kind of cool when you think about it.
Exactly. And that takes us back to something we were talking about earlier, how important perspective is.
And the Stoics, they were all about that, right? They had this thing they did, they called it view from above.
And basically they would imagine they were looking down at the world from way up high, like from space almost.
And it helped them get some distance from their problems.
You realize that even the things that seem huge, they're often really small in the grand scheme of things,
Wow, I love that. Is that kind of like when you look up at the stars at night?
It just like instantly makes you feel smaller, and your problems feel smaller too.
So, okay, here's a question. If we could somehow bring Marcus Aurelius to the present day,
Like, drop him right here into our crazy 21st century lives, what do you think he'd find the weirdest, the hardest to deal with?
oh, that's a good question. I think he might be really surprised by how much we let, outside stuff control whether we're happy or not.
The constant comparing ourselves to others on social media, always wanting more things, feeling like we're never doing enough. I bet he'd be telling us to, like, simplify.
To just focus on what really matters deep down. Our values, our relationships, how we're contributing to the world.
It's so true. It's like we've traded in our own peace of mind for this illusion of control.
This need to be, like, on all the time, constantly connected.
Maybe Marcus Aurelius would tell us to, like, put our phones down for a minute, step away from the screens, and actually, like, reconnect with ourselves and with the world around us.
The real world.
Yeah, he just might. I think he'd probably remind us that real happiness, the kind that lasts, that doesn't come from other people's approval, but from, living by what you believe in and focusing on what you can actually do something about.
And maybe stressing a little less about the things you can't, right?
Which is honestly good advice for anyone. Doesn't matter if you're a Roman emperor or just trying to get through the day, right?
So, deep divers, as we wrap up our little Stoicism journey today, here's something to think about.
If Marcus Aurelius was your life coach, what's the one thing he would tell you today?
Think about it. And until next time, may you find strength and wisdom no matter what life throws.
Wake up with purpose, feel that fire in your chest. Life's a gift, man, breathe it in, give it your best. Stars in the sky, a mirror of what's inside. Change is the game, let your spirit be your guide.
So raining on unbreakable, that's the key. Control your thoughts, find the strength to set yourself free. Opinions flying, world full of noise and stress. The truth lies within you, put your soul to the test.
Anger burns hot, but revenge leaves you cold. Kindness is the weapon, that's how the story's told. Don't judge a book by its cover, look deeper instead. Find the good in everyone, let that wisdom spread.
So raining on unbreakable, that's the key. Control your thoughts, find the strength to set yourself free. Opinions flying, world full of noise and stress. The truth lies within you, put your soul to the test.
Yeah, they try to knock you down, throw obstacles your way, but you rise above the drama, find peace every day. The happiness of your life depends on the quality of thoughts. Keep that fire burning bright, the power you got.
Slowing down, unbreakable, that's the key. Control your thoughts, find the strength to set yourself free. Opinions flying, world full of noise and stress. Truth lies within you, put your soul to the test.
Fate throws the curveball, but you adapt, never fold. The past is gone, the future untold. Live in the moment, that's where the true power lies. A stoic warrior, wisdom in your eyes. If it is not right, do not do it. Keep it real. The soul becomes sky with the color of its thoughts. How you feel?
Stoic, so unbreakable, find the strength within.
You got this, no doubt. The victory you'll win. Critics talk loud, try to dim your inner light, but they ain't worth your time. Rise above the petty fight. Remember, everything we hear is an opinion, not a fact. Stay true to your path, keep your integrity intact. It's not death a man should fear, but never beginning to live. So seize the day, let your spirit soar. Got so much to give. Focus on the good, leave the negativity behind. Stoic warrior state of mind. That's the legacy you'll find.
That sucks, man. I had a difficult childhood, but there's no excuse for people not being able to do what they want to do. You can do anything that you want to do.
What do you really, really want from your life? If you had no limitations, if you had all the money and all the time and all the talents and all the abilities, if you could do or be or have anything, what would you really want in your life?
I'm going to have setbacks, I know. But if I'm feeling bad, that doesn't mean I'm doing bad. That doesn't mean I am bad. That doesn't mean that I can't still take some action. Because yeah, nothing changes and nothing changes, man.
You're the backbone of this country. You're the backbone of the world. I don't care if you're in Asia, Africa, Korea, Japan. I don't care where you are, the United States. You are the leaders, the future leaders of this world.
Happen. In life, folks, you cannot change your life unless you change something. If you always do what you always did, you'll always get what you always got.
The unfulfilled potential is the story of most people's lives.
It is. It is. And it could have been the story of mine. And I tell a lot of people go, what's your biggest fear in life? And my biggest fear, honestly, was, let's say this. Let's say, I don't care if you believe in God or not. I don't care. So this is play a game with me. Let's say you're God. And we have a big fucking long line of people. And I made it to heaven. I'm 75 years old. I'm 300 pounds. I made it to heaven. I worked for Ecolab my entire life, spraying for cockroaches. That's what I did. But I'm dead. I'm in heaven now. And you're judging us all now. So we're in line. We're all sitting there in line. You have.
Saying no is important. There is nothing impossible to him who will try. It is in the character of very few men to honor without envy a friend who has prospered. Aeschylus. Having been poor is no shame, but being ashamed of it is. Be civil to all, sociable to many, familiar with few, friend to many, enemy to none.
The power to change your reality lies within your own mind. Neville Goddard.
You've got to want. And the reason, I think, is different for everybody to want. Some comes out of pain. Some comes out of, I want to prove somebody wrong. And then I think some people just have that switch inside.
Let them all talk, let them all make their noise, because at the end of the day, you are the only one who has the guts. We have the guts to go to work and show up every single day, day in and day out, putting in the work. You fight through the noise, you fight through the fatigue, you fight through it all, you stay extremely intensely focused on the goal. And once you fight through that fatigue, you fight through the noise, on the other side of that is your goals. On the other side of that is the accomplishment. On the other side of that is your greatness.
If you have a sufficiently noble purpose, the suffering will justify itself. And I think that's empirically testable. And I do believe it's the case, because I've watched people do very difficult things. And what that shows is that if you turn around and you confront the suffering voluntarily, you find out that you are way tougher than you think. It's not that life is better than you think. Life is as harsh as you think. It might even be worse, but you are way tougher than you think if you turn around and confront it. And so then what you discover is that there's a spirit within you that can pursue something meaningful, that has the resilience and the strength to contend properly with the catastrophe of existence without becoming bitter.
If you're feeling pain, keep going. If your lungs are working, keep going. You hurt, you grow, you go. And from the bottom of my heart, keep it moving and conduct your business.
My biggest fear in life is that there is a final resting place in this world, and there's a final judgment, and you talk to something much bigger than you. I don't want to sit there.
To live with the gods. He liveth with the gods, who at all times affords unto them the spectacle of a soul, both contented and well pleased with whatsoever is afforded or allotted unto her, and performing whatsoever is pleasing to that spirit, whom, being part of himself, Jove hath appointed to every man as his overseer and governor.
choose your friends wisely. The fastest way to become better is to surround yourself with better people. It is unrealistic to expect people to see you as you see yourself.
Quid Latin dictum sit, altum videtur. Whatever is said in Latin sounds profound. Latin joke.
Turn your wounds into wisdom. Let go a little and just let life happen.
A human being is like a television set with millions of channels. We cannot let just one channel dominate us. We have the seed of everything in us, and we have to recover our own sovereignty. Thich Nhat Hanh.
I started dating Dee Dee because she was doing something with her life. And she got on my last nerves, but she forced me to go get my GED. I will never forget, Dee Dee called me to her house. She said, my mom is gone. Can you come over? I was like, no doubt. No doubt. You know what I'm saying? Got on my bike, you know what I'm saying? 3-mile ride. I was just riding over. Her mom is gone. Her mom is gone. She invited me over. Wow, finally. Her mom is gone. Her mom is gone. Finally, after all these months, it's on and popping. I get to the house and she comes outside. I'm like, oh, what you coming out for? I thought you said your mom was gone. She says she is, but we need to talk first. I was like, talk about what? She's like, I gotta ask you a question first. I was like, all right, what you gotta ask me? Hurry up. She said, do you love me? I said, love you? Yeah. Yeah, I love you. She was like, no, do you love me, love me? I said, yeah, I love you, love you. She said, all right, I want to show you something. I was like, yes. So she pulled a piece of paper out of her back pocket. I said, what? It was an acceptance letter to college. She said, I got accepted into college. And if you don't go get your GED and follow me to college, I'm breaking up with you. Let me just tell y'all something. I hate school. Never liked school, dropped out of school. But when she said that, I might be a little slow, but I ain't stupid. I went to night school, studied, and passed my GED and followed to college. We've been married almost 33 years.
On Providence. When you make any charge against Providence, consider, and you will learn that the thing has happened according to reason. Yes, but the unjust man has the advantage. In what? In money. Yes, for he is superior to you in this, that he flatters, is free from shame, and is watchful. What is the wonder? But see if he has the advantage over you in being faithful, in being modest, for you will not find it to be so. But wherein you are superior, there you will find that you have the advantage. And I once said to a man who was vexed because Philistorgus was fortunate, would you choose to lie with Sura? May it never happen, he replied, that this day should come. Why then are you vexed if he receives something in return for that which he sells? Or how can you consider him happy who acquires those things by such means as you abominate? Or what wrong does Providence if he gives the better things to the better men? Is it not better to be modest than to be rich?